So I might get Steve's help on this one. We just want to give you a concept and a way that you can think about the way that the SEO landscape has changed, give you a model of the world. I mean, we don't understand exactly how the algorithm works, but this, what we'll walk through now, kind of gives you a little bit of an idea as to how it works so you can understand things a bit better. So at the core of the way that the search engines are working now, if you imagine right in the middle here, this is the the original machine. You've got cogs going on. This is the original algorithm as we know it, and we talked about that in the SEO method too. It's one big popularity contest. The aim of the game is to make sure that you've got other popular people linking to you saying how awesome you are and all that. That core engine still is there, but what Google's done is they've started to put different layers around that. Before you can get into the actual machine, you've got to pass through a whole lot of different layers, and these layers are different elements and components of Penguin and Panda, and we're talking about for example, over-optimization of anchor text. Now, the way that they think about it, if you imagine here is like the barbed wire fence, and if you get zapped by any of these, you just go up on Google's radar. Now they know that, yep, we need a target. So if you imagine there are little gates that you need to pass through to get through to these different filters. Now, has anyone played, what's it? Operation, where you've got to go in, and when you touch a side, it goes bzzz, and that's when, the attention is brought on you. Now, if you imagine, as I said, each one of these is a different filter. So let's say that this one might be the anchor text density. So, and there are a whole lot of different ones. Now, this gate here that Google has that you need to pass your website through before you get through to the core algorithm, they know because they've obviously got a lot of data that they can draw on. They know what the average is in a particular niche for a particular keyword. Now, what they do is they might take a standard deviation one way, a standard deviation the other way. That means that they can take 70%, or they know that 70% of the results, if you look at a bell curve, 70% of the results fall within this space. So they go, right, what is that? And then they go, okay, so let's now set that as the size of the gate. We know what people have to pass through now. So if you imagine this is your website and we need to move it through round here without touching any of the edges, because if we do, then that's when we set off the alarms. Now, I'll talk a little bit about some of the filters, and then Steve, I'll make sure that I didn't leave anything out. So some things to keep in mind. Some filters are worth more than other filters as well. So some things Google goes, hey, if you violate this, that's a real big no-no, and that'll set off the big alarm. So Steve and I will talk a little bit about the way the scoring works. But the other thing to keep in mind is Penguin, Panda, and all of the other algorithms that have snuck through under that whole update series that we saw are constantly changing. They're lines in the sand. It's an algorithm that's moving and evolving as the web shapes. So we can't give you exact numbers and say, hey, when you're building the anchor text density, you need to have 70% brand terms. I'll give you some guidelines, but we can't give you the exact numbers. And it varies based on the keyword and the competition, because they're taking standard deviations, or if you think of it that way, that's going to vary based on different industries and things like that as well. And once you trip it, that's when the attention goes on you. And if you trip it, and you trip it so badly because some things are more important than others, that's when you might pop up. They get a manual reviewer. The manual reviewer might come to your site, say, hey, we really don't like that. And then once that happens, that's when you need to go through the manual review, and you're working with one of the spam team, web spam team, as opposed to working with the algorithm. Much smarter if we can to work with the algorithm. Steve-O's had some painful stories of working with
thanks for bringing it up. So.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to work with them to try, because they want you to do the best job of cleaning up, 70% or more. How did I go? Did that describe it pretty well?
Yeah, I don't know where you need my help. That's great.
No, tell us about the way you see the scoring work.
Well, I mean, the other way that you can think of this, because I mean, you've certainly got that right, Dave. I'll stand not in the way of the script. So yeah, you can think of it like this, where it's a gate that you've got to pass through. And another way that you can think of it, if you use AdWords, think of it like a quality score. That's a really easy way to conceptualize what Google is actually doing. They're rating your page. So Panda, which I'll talk about in a sec, it's really about page layout and design and user experience. They're really assigning a quality score to your page and saying, how good is this page, based on a whole bunch of factors. And then they sort of sum all that up and they give you a quality score for your whole site. Okay, so your whole site's now got a score attributed to that. You don't get to see what it is, but it's there on your site. And it's almost like that, you know, if you score 80%, that's a good number. So let's say 100% is perfect and 80% might be a good number. If you're sort of 80 to 100%, you'll be fine. But if you fall below whatever this sort of figure is that says, you know, if you fall below 70%, then that's when you start to see an impact on your ranking across all of your rankings. So
Yeah,
that's another way of thinking about it.